The Florida Gators have added some elite talent in the 2026 recruiting class over the past couple weeks.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Wednesday. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI. And today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And the Florida Gators in recent weeks have – actually, before we even talk about the actual players, I just want to throw this out there real quick. It is insane to me that Florida can go on the heater that they've been on for the past month and a half. A month and a half ago, they had one commit. They had one. And then they went on this insane heater for, it's like, oh, well, we'll add 3 commits over these 2 days. And then we won't add someone for a week. And then we'll add 3 commits. And then we'll do this. So a month and a half ago, they had 1 commit. Now they've got 18. And the timeline melts down every day that there's not a commit. It's kind of crazy. Florida has 18 commits. They're probably going to take another, I don't know, 4 to 8 people if I just had to kind of spitball it. That's it. That's not a lot. That's really not a lot. You have to especially consider that with the roster building process of taking, 25 kids every year. It's not really a sustainable thing anymore because you got to go to the portal. And yeah, you're going to lose some kids, but we're taking 25 high school kids and then going to hit the portal. And then what? You're allowed to have 85 scholarship players on the roster now for the SEC. That's it. You can't take 25 scholarship high school kids every year and then another 5 portal kids every year. You can't do that. The math ain't going to math that way. It doesn't work. So let's get that out of there. Anyway, talking about these scouting reports that we are talking about, because we have done these scouting reports for the entire class up to this point. I'm going to redo rankings again now that we've got more kids in the class, but maybe do that next week at some point. But first off is linebacker Malik Morris, a 4-star on all 3 platforms, played at 6'1", 225 pounds, but is significantly heavier now, reportedly, which I do think a lot of people are kind of concerned about, but I'm not. He's 6'1", 225 pounds, or that's what he played at. But right now he's reportedly up at like 270 or something like that, or dropping to 250, whatever it may be. He's recovering from a knee injury that's preventing him from doing cardio, working out, whatever it may be. I doubt that he is all of a sudden eating way differently. I think it's just that he's not working out as much, and so he's not losing any of the weight, or he's not burning the calories that he would. So I'm really not stressed about it. And I will say this. This is one of the very few times where I'm going to say I think someone might have played at a heavier weight than they were listed at, because he has just a huge frame, right? Like 6'1" is an all right size for a linebacker, right? 225 pounds, pretty good weight for a linebacker. But Malik Morris is built like a freaking tank. Like it says, I make a joke about my niece, and I made the same joke about my nephew, but when they were babies, because they were very big babies, and so I would make the joke that it's like they're dense, like a raccoon holding a bowling ball, and that's the density there, like just broad shoulders, huge thighs, huge calves, mass in the arms, like 225. That's a big 225, right? Like that's dense. I don't fully buy the 225. I do think that he might have been playing at like 235, 240. Maybe, again, he's just a tank. He's just a big dude. And so, yeah, he's just huge. But flies downhill as a blitzer and versus the run. Basically, once he recognizes, hey, it's time to get downhill, he's going to get downhill really quick. Like his downhill speed is nuts. And I do think that we have this conversation a lot about, guys that have great straight line speed and whether they work out or not, or guys that are quick diagnosing plays, whether they work out or not. But Malik Morris does have a very rare combination there, I think, for a high school player of diagnosing plays quickly plus that downhill speed. I think that combination is really valuable, really lethal too. I think having that combination of being a quick processor and being able to fly downhill, I think is incredibly valuable at linebacker. Love how he kind of gets to his fits and settles in. Like he gets to his assignment, his responsibility against the run and kind of settles until it's clear, hey, they're not going here, or he'll just fly down and make the play himself. Does a great job of recognizing plays, developing. Like I don't even remember how early into his film it is, but there's a play where he's recognizing the screen before they're all even moving out for the screen, and he comes in and makes a play on it. He blows up quite a few screens on his film. I mean, his hitting is like a car crash at times. Like, there's a few plays where he lights someone up and it looks like video game, like up on the hit stick. Like we're talking high there. Speaking of high, he does, I think at times he tackles a bit too high, would benefit from maybe getting lower, closer to that, torso hip area to target. So I think you'd benefit there. But also I don't know how rigid he may be, because he's also like on his film, he plays a lot of Mike and a lot of Sam. So middle and strong side. I don't know how much he'll be playing Mike at the next level. He seems like he might be more of an early down player. I'm not sold on his lateral agility yet, because again, this is just what you see on his film, which is a lot of shallow coverage too. So he's not really asked to run sideline to sideline. So I can't really say that he can't do it. I'm saying we haven't seen it, and so I'm not sold on it. But he's more of a straight line sprinter. Like he'll recognize where the play is going, where the ball is going, and he'll fire there as quickly as he can. He'll just fly over. Straight line speed, great. So he'll recognize where he has to be or where it's going to wind up, and he'll fly there. I'm not too sure about his actual lateral agility in terms of like shifting, shuffling, and moving. He's more of a turn and run. And I don't mean like at the same time. He's like turning and then sprinting to where he has to go. So I'm not too sure what he's going to be coverage-wise. Also, I think it's very important to acknowledge that when we talk about strength and conditioning changing in college from high school, that includes doing yoga and getting more flexible and opening things up like that. So that could be a thing that also changes, and I think that more people need to acknowledge, hey, that might be an area where you improve from high school to college, and just flexibility. Malik Morris is strong as hell, knows how to operate as a spy. Even when he is in zone coverage, again, that's a lot of shallow zones, but keeps his eyes in the backfield where they need to be. Most of his picks, and even pass deflections, are him just recognizing where the quarterback's going to go and making a play on the ball there. His running back film is fun. He's not going to do it at the next level, but it's still fun to watch. Blocked a punt on special teams, was in there for quite a few pressures on special teams, or I guess punt pressures. Is that a stat? That's what we're going to call it. I was in there for quite a few punt pressures. I really liked the quickness at which he gets his hands up to, I don't want to say disrupt passing lanes, because I use that more when we're talking about rushing the passer. But just to break up passes really quick. Like there's one play on his film. He's running back into coverage, turns his head really quickly, gets his hands up as quick as he can, and doesn't pick it, breaks it up. But just that was lightning quick to do that. I like the way that he sifts through traffic with blockers. Not easy to get by. Like he'll break down and won't miss his tackles. And once he gets his hands on ball carries, not letting go. Not letting go. He played a little bit on the edge. Might be a thing he's asked to do more of with Florida. Like I'm not sure if he's the guy where it's like, yep, you're going to be an off-ball linebacker that comes to the edge and you're going to move around wherever we need you. because we respect your ability to not just defend the run, not just operate in coverage, but also to genuinely be a decent pass rusher. We think you might be able to do it. And so I think that Malik Morris has that versatility that can be really valuable. And film is like his film is really fun to watch. Wasn't the most fun film to watch. That's the one that we're going to end this show with today, but it was still really fun to watch. We're going to talk about KJ Ford, the elite pass rusher that the Florida Gators landed this past weekend, when we get back with Locked On Gators. Summer sports are in full swing, whether you're all about baseball under the lights, which Cal Raleigh home run derby, which actually we're going to take a second. FanDuel, I'm going to call you out for something real quick, because FanDuel is the best way to make games even more exciting. But they had Jazz Chisholm with better odds to win the home run derby than, who was it? Brent Rooker and Junior Caminero. And I don't know what the hell they saw with that one. I'll tell you that one, I sniped it. That one I was, you kidding me? Jazz having better odds? I put money on Junior and Rooker just because I was like, hey, if either of them win, that's great odds. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free every single podcast and on YouTube. And on Friday night, the Florida Gators added edge rusher Kevin Ford, KJ Ford. I refer to him as both. I know some sites have him listed as KJ, some have him listed as Kevin. I'm going to call him both. They're interchangeable to me. He is a 4-star on all 3 platforms, which, by the way, only 3 platforms now that we talk about. On3's rankings are gone. It's Rivals, since the Rivals and On3 merger. So it's Rivals, 24/7, and ESPN. KJ Ford, listed as 6'3", 245. Long-limbed. I know that I often am talking about long arms, but KJ Ford's just long-limbed in general. And you can see that whenever he's in his stance, which a lot of 3- and 4-point stances, which I was going to mention this later, but we'll talk about this now. We saw him play a lot of 3- and 4-point stances. I didn't see him play a lot of snaps as a stand-up edge, but in those very limited reps as a stand-up edge rusher, I liked those reps more than I liked his hand in the dirt reps. I just think he's the kind of guy that benefits from working in a 2-point stance as opposed to 3 or 4. And so but also I will say this, if he's playing jack, he's going to have his hand up more. So that's going to be fine. Their defense just had a lot of 3- and 4-point stance work. But he seemed more natural rushing from a stand-up stance, which I do think that also at his size, that's a good benefit. I do think that he'll add some weight, so maybe that'll be different. But because also he's listed as 245 pounds. He looks lighter than that to me. Because again, he's long-limbed, but legs aren't too big. Arms aren't too big. Not that he's small, but he also doesn't look big. So I do think that he's going to need to bulk up a little bit. But his frame, like his shoulders, his hips, thighs, kind of like look like he could carry more weight and be fine with it. He just hasn't built it up yet. So I will say that, because there's also guys like, I don't have a big frame. I wouldn't carry a ton of weight well. There's a lot of people who don't carry big frames, won't carry a ton of weight well. That is what it is. KJ Ford, Kevin Ford, looks like he can. Like his natural frame looks pretty solid. So it looks like he can put on that weight. So I'm not concerned about it. His play strength versus the run, despite being, again, I think lighter than 245, his play strength versus the run is really solid for someone that's as light as he is. Okay. Because again, he is thin, but there are plays where he'll be lined up and engaged with a guard, and he's holding his own very well. And by holding his own, I don't mean, oh yeah, he's not losing the battle, but he's not winning. I mean, like he's holding his own. He's winning a bit against guards. There's plays where he engages with an offensive tackle and he stands the offensive tackle upright. Like, play strength isn't a big issue for high school there. I do think that in the SEC, it'll be a bit different. But he also just, I will say, he explodes off the line. And that's the kind of edge rusher that I like, right? Like, that's one of the reasons that I know a lot of Florida Gators fans hate him at this point, but that's one of the reasons I loved watching Princely Umamielen play. Like Princely is my kind of edge rusher. I love the finesse edge rushers on the edge. Yeah, that wasn't redundant. Finesse edge rushers on the edge. I like the finesse edge rushers. I do. It's fun. It's explosive. It's dynamic. It's just fun to watch them get by people. It's a great thing to watch. I love it. And KJ Ford is a great first step. And trying to think back, might be the quickest first step we've seen from a Billy Napier high school edge. Might be. That KJ Ford might have that quickest first step that we've seen from a Billy Napier recruited high school edge. Because he, again, just explodes off the line there. Has a nice little double swipe where he versus offensive tackles, especially when he's getting around the edge. If he's lined up a little wider, definitely helps him get by consistently. Could improve the flexibility again, or a bit more, I'll say. His bend isn't bad, but it's also not great. And this is a me thing. Like, you could disagree with that all you want. I do think that he's shown that there's times where he gets low and gets around, but not consistently enough. And if you are going to be a finesse pass rusher with a light frame and a very quick first step, you better be able to bend it like Beckham around the edge there. Like you better be able to do it. And he can do it, but he can't do it really consistently yet. Because that's the thing where you could see it with guys that have that insane bend. There's guys that you can see that they do it consistently at a high level and they move without losing speed. They move without really losing the rep. Like, they do it consistently. And while it's on his film a bit, it's not on his film consistently. And by consistently, I don't mean, oh yeah, he does it every 4 plays, every 3. I mean, like, when there's times where he's trying to bend the corner, that you do it more often than not. And I don't think they were there yet. So need to work on that. Again, it's not bad. It's not great. I'd say it's good, but this is the SEC. Good isn't good enough. I like the way that he can stack and shed versus the run. Like, he'll engage with an offensive tackle, and you'll see him keep his eyes or keep his head moving around, watching, and shed to the side that he needs to shed to. Showed good discipline versus the option. There were not a lot of plays, but there were a couple of plays where he was the one that he was the read man. Defended it well, forced the handoff. Defense made the play. Great stuff there. A lot of his wins came from first step and quickness, and even the double swipe is married to that, right? I'm quick. I'm trying to get around you, and as you're bringing your hands out, I'm going to swipe them down, and I'm going to get going. So a lot of it's finesse, and finesse is great. Let me see a spin move, which I will say in his defense, a lot of when he was lined up was head up or inside the tackle, inside the shoulder of the tackle. We saw a tight end. Like, he would be moving around a bit, but there were times where, a spin move is not going to be effective, right? If we're playing tight front and I got to spin and I got to go swimming, by tight, I don't mean T-I-T-E, I mean T-I-G-H-T. If we're playing that kind of front end, I got to spin in, I'm not going to get anywhere, right? And so KJ4, like, there's times, but if you work out that spin, it's going to be really nice. I'm a big fan of the spin move, not surprisingly. And so I think that that's something he could add to his pass rush toolbox, because he's got the swipe. You improve the bend. You add a couple more tools to the toolbox, and you're going to be lethal, right? And like I mentioned, getting hands in the passing lanes as an edge rusher, he didn't do it a lot. I think it's only twice on his film, but you're not winning your rep. Get your hands up, disrupt the passing play, maybe break it up, or maybe just cause a pump fake that allows your pass rush more time to get in. But KJ Ford, his film looks really freaking good. I'm not going to lie. Like, he's the kind of player where you watch him, and again, I'm not trying to be redundant with this, but when you watch the Florida Gators 2026 commits, a lot of them have similar traits in the sense of they've got the physical athletic tools that are really tough to teach or impossible to teach. They've got the mental intangibles there that are impossible to teach. And then they just want to work on refining the technique. And that's very prevalent with a lot of this 2026 class. And to me, that honestly tells me this is how they've been targeting and evaluating kids, but they're actually landing the people that are higher up on their board now. I think that's the indicator to me, honestly, that so much of the class has these similarities makes me think this is who you've been targeting, but it's just now clicking with actually landing the commits. And I think that's, again, I could be wrong. I don't know their board, but that's how I think of it, at least when we talk about this 2026 class, because there's a lot of similarities, just in the sense of, whether it's a corner and an edge rusher and a receiver or an offensive tackle. Like, they have those things that you look for and you go, those are the traits that when we talk about a first round pick in the NFL draft, that's the selling point that people talk about. They talk about the bend. They talk about the first step. They talk about things like that. They talk about the long arms and explosive athletic ability. Like, they talk about these things, and that's what we're talking about with a lot of these 2026 commits for Florida right now. So that makes me think, like, hey, you're targeting these guys that have those physical tools, and you're just landing them now. And you've probably been targeting them more, where some of the guys, especially toward the bottom of the class in recent years, haven't been there. We got one more player to talk about, and it's Heze freaking Kent when we get back with Locked On Gators. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free, whether it's the podcast and on YouTube. To wrap up today's show, we are talking about the most recent commit at the time of recording this late on Tuesday night. Heze Kent, tight end / offensive lineman, 4-star on all three platforms, 6'6", 320 pounds. And if you've never watched high school film before, if you've never watched any film, or even if you have watched film, then you know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't watched the film, please do for Heze Kent. If you have watched film, but you haven't watched his film, please do. Just go to Google, type in Heze Kent, Heze Kent, Huddle, Hudl, and just go watch it. Like, it's the pinned video. It's the most recent highlights. It's his junior season highlights. Just go watch it, at least the first minute of it, because not only is it some of the most fun I've ever had watching a recruit, it's maybe the funniest high school film I've ever watched. Not funny in like a making fun of anybody manner. I just want to make that clear. It's funny because you're watching this giant person. Again, he's listed as 6'6", 320. You're watching this giant human being, and the first play of his film is him lined up as a wide receiver, the only guy on that side, if I'm not mistaken, and he runs into the end zone. There's a whole bunch of crap going on in the backfield. The quarterback's Johnny Manzielling everywhere, and then he just lets it fly, and it's Heze Kent in the end zone, and it's a touchdown. And then I think the very next play is he lines up in the slot. They snap the ball, and he just takes a step, comes back, and he's sitting there waiting for a screen. And the second play of his film, you see a 6'6", 320-pound behemoth take a screen from the slot for 50+ yards. That's the kind of athlete that we're talking about. Like, he is a really fluid athlete regardless of size. But for someone that's 6'6", 320 pounds, it's like otherworldly athleticism. And I'm not just trying to gas this up. Like, that is otherworldly athleticism. Great contact balance, which, I mean, part of the great contact balance is that, again, he's 6'6", 320 pounds. And he's working against DBs and linebackers. Like, they're not lighting him up. I can tell you right now, if I saw him coming down the lane, I'm going at his ankles. And if he gets by, he gets by. But I'm not putting, because especially when I think about it, like high school DBs, high school corners, you're what? On average, 5'10", 5'11". I'm not talking about, DBs that are going to play D1 football, FBS football, SEC football. I'm talking about just high school kids. You're 5'10", 5'11", probably 180 pounds. That's me, by the way. That's what I'm 5'11", 175. It's still generally close to that size. 6'6", 320, and if I'm 16 years old and I got that coming down the track, you're out of your freaking mind if you think I'm getting in the way. I'm going at his ankles. There's a lot of kids that I think try to go high. I think they're scared of going low with someone that big, which I get. But when they go high, not doing much to him, right? Great contact balance. He has a stiff arm, I think, on that screen where it just sends the kid to the ground. Like, I think you could have done the GTA, like, wasted just with that stiff arm coming down. It was nuts. It's great film. Like I said, it's a ton of fun to watch. Always uses his hands to go out there and catch it. And I feel like when you have people with a frame that big, like 6'6", 320, we usually only see people that big catch passes when it's defensive linemen intercepting passes, in which case that's not relevant because that's not catching the pass, or offensive tackle sneaking out, right? And a lot of times they let it come out like they're fielding a punt. Like they're just like, all right, let me just not screw this up. I'm going to tense my shoulders. I'm going to bring my hands in, my arms in, my elbows are touching, and I'm going to catch it like that. Heze Kent's like, all right, let me just reach out there and reach out. Like he's full extension for some of these, or at least his hands. I didn't see any diving catches. But always uses his hands to catch. And he just moves people like he's genuinely a sixth offensive lineman. And like when he's blocking, like I will say, the technique like isn't really there as a blocker. He's just bigger than everyone, pummeling everyone. That's it. And he's going to do that at just about any level of football or high school football. If he's 6'6", 320, lined up against these smaller edge rushers aren't 6'6", 320. Defensive nose tackles aren't 6'6", 320 most of the time. Florida gets him that big, but most schools don't have people at that size. And so Heze Kent is offensive tackle size. The technique's not there at all, really, as a blocker, but he's just pummeling smaller people. Like I mentioned my niece and nephew before, like him when he's facing these high school kids, like the high school DBs, like it looks like me playing football with my niece and nephew. And they're 8 and 5. Again, it looks like that. Like it just looks like that. It just destroys him. I think that his film is so incredibly impressive, right? It is so incredibly impressive, especially when you take into account his size. And I've said this before, like I do think that he can work out at tight end. I've never said he can't work out at tight end. I've said that I don't know, how much he'll work out, if he'll be really like a dominant guy, but the more and more that I watch Heze Kent, the more I want him to play offensive tackle so bad. Because the more and more that I watch Heze Kent, the more and more confident I get that he could be a killer offensive tackle. And for me, the conversation is not about whether or not he can last at tight end. I know that there's a lot of people that go, that size, you're not playing tight end. Like and I understand people saying that. I get the sentiment because it's not something you've seen before, right? Similar to like looking at Kyle Pitts on the flip side, right? Like you don't see people that thin play tight end, so you thought it couldn't work. My thought isn't that he can't work at tight end. And I get it. He wants to play tight end. That's fine. I'm not saying what the kid can or can't do. I'm not saying what he should or shouldn't want to do. But I'm saying from a roster building perspective, when I watch his film, I want him at tackle because I think he can work out at tight end. I think he can work out at tackle. And we had this conversation like last week, I think it was. If you've got, I think it was on the commitment video, if you have an elite tight end or an elite offensive tackle, you can say what you would prefer. That's fine. Like you could be like, oh, I don't know, a lot of you watching are probably Jaguars or Dolphins fans. And you can look at, we got a first round pick. We're deciding between tight end and offensive tackle. They're both elite. And we know for a fact they're both going to be elite. Like let's say it's that. We know for a fact they're both going to be the best player at their position in the entire league. Because that's level, right? That's the level. They're both the best tight end, the best offensive tackle. Who do you think should be the pick? Because I think that there's going to be casual fans that say tight end and even non-casual fans that are going to say tight end, right? But I think that NFL front offices and GMs and people in charge are going to say offensive tackle because offensive tackle is just so much more valuable than tight end. It is. Offensive tackle is so much more valuable than tight end. If you have an elite receiving tight end that can't block as well and you need to bring in a second tight end, that means you're taking a receiver off the field. You're getting less dynamic because of it. If you've got an elite blocking tight end that can't be a great pass catcher, then he's not very helpful, right? If you've got an elite tight end at both, that's awesome. If you got an elite offensive tackle, that's still so much more valuable than an elite tight end that's great at both. It really is. The value at offensive tackle right now has never been higher. And for a while, it's only going to keep going up. So offensive tackle is just way more valuable. It's what Heze Kent should be playing. In my opinion, again, my argument isn't that he can't work out a tight end. It's that tackle is such a more valuable position that's what the move should be. And when you watch his film, it's fun as hell. You're looking at a physical freak, an absolute anomaly, an alien that should be playing offensive tackle. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever it's in the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow at the absolute latest. I know that a lot of people were hoping that we would have a live show for James Johnson, but he's committed to Texas, so don't know what to tell you there. I am Brandon Olsen for Locked On Gators. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I'll see you all next time.